Jude, you're looking pretty in pink today. Wow, Jude, you're looking even less clapped than usual. It must be that beautiful sweater that you've adorned today. Where did you get such a priceless item? Well, I'm glad you asked. That's right, merchandise for my animated film Big Mountain is over at bogboymerch.com. And if this doesn't pick your fancy for whatever twisted reason, there's also some other options on there. So genuinely thanks very much to everyone who's got themselves one of these already. Enough of the pleasantries, let's get into the meat and bread of what today's video is all about. I'm gonna head back here for a second. You see, I've been thinking a lot about the world building of my animated film. I've been thinking a lot about some of the areas that I've developed so far and how they all tie together on a sort of magical and mythical level, because obviously this fantasy world of mine is inhabited by a whole array of spirits and gods and weird creatures. And so today I thought we could maybe think about drawing a couple of ruins and a couple of temples and shrines and things like that. And so I think I want to do one piece about the peak of the mountain, the very top, and also maybe one piece about the bamboo forest. I'm not too sure. I mean, I guess you'll see in a couple of seconds once we get into the voiceover time-lapse section of this video. So let's do that now. Let's get to drawing. I'll see you in a second. Ugh. Did that look cool? Did that look cool on camera? Oh God, I hope that looked good. I need a haircut. Oh my God. So the first piece that I did today centered around the mountain's peak, the very, very top. This is something I haven't really covered before, mostly because it's where the climax of the story happens, so I've been avoiding it a bit, but the point is, I didn't really have any concrete ideas going in. All I knew was there needed to be some sort of temple or monument that the characters have to reach, where they'll find out the truth as to what lies at the top of the big mountain. I couldn't really find any good reference images for this kind of thing, so my main inspiration really was the top of the mountain in Midgard from God of War, which is much smaller than what I'm imagining, but similar enough at least to work from. So you can see I had the temple embedded in this big spiky bit of rock, and the rest of the mountain forms in a big circle around this courtyard area. Obviously it's going to be incredibly snowy in this area, snowier than I think I ended up depicting, so lots of the ruined structures around here will be covered by big snow drifts anyway. But even so, I do think I left this courtyard area a little bit empty. It probably needs something else in it to spruce things up. I did put this little freestanding bell tower type thing over on the right though. They have these giant bells at Buddhist temples and things that I've been to in other countries, and without meaning to steal from their religion too much, I think they're really cool, so I wanted to have one at the top of my mountain. And also it kind of makes sense anyway to have a big bell that you can ring, because it's a way of communicating with people below, a way of telling them that you've reached the top, I suppose. When it came to designing the actual temple, I struggled more than I thought I would. I mean, for a start, drawing made-up architecture from scratch is actually really difficult as it turns out, so I definitely have a lot of respect for people who come up with this stuff in fantasy shows and movies. But the main thing I had to really think about was how extravagant to go with my design, because for one, the very point of this whole mountainous journey is that not many people, or even nobody outside of legends and myths, has reached the top before, so the obvious question is, how was any of this built if no one has ever come up here? There is rumoured to be a spirit that lives up here that has the power to grant wishes, so obviously I could say that all of this was built by them, but rather than that I kinda like the idea that this stuff was made to worship said spirit, so maybe this was all built by an ancient group of people from long ago that nobody knows much about, and maybe that's where the rumours and myths and legends of people reaching the top came from. So for that reason the temple couldn't be too massive or anything, because the conditions are very extreme for anyone to be building anything particularly grand. And the second reason for having the temple a bit more understated is that no one has found it in hundreds or thousands of years, so obviously if it was this huge temple you would have thought that someone would have noticed it by now. Anyway, I'm not fully happy with what I ended up with. I think this temple can definitely be revised in the future, but it's good enough for now, and I think the whole location is suitably dramatic. Also, although I didn't draw it very well, I like the idea that there's this big ruined statue which has fallen and broken up next to the entrance of this place. Perhaps the ancient people who were rumoured to have made it up here tried to build a sort of monument to the mountain spirit, and because they didn't know what it looked like, they just built this huge stone giant, which of course has not stood the test of time and now lays stretched out in pieces across the mountain's highest ridge. So that's the first piece. It's okay, it could be better, but let me know how you think I could have improved it in the comments below. And moving on then to the second piece I did for this episode, we're going to travel a long way down the mountain now, back to the bamboo forest we've covered a few times before. This forest is of course usually green and full of life, but in this piece I wanted to depict what it looks like after it's been burnt to the ground by some nasty competitors who couldn't find their way past, so decided to quicken their travel by just torching the whole thing without a second thought. During this section of the film, the main characters will attempt to help the king of the bamboo forest, and he's this giant lovable panda, but as you'd expect, he's heartbroken at the destruction of his home. So feeling quite powerless in this rather dire situation, the main character Alvar will begin to panic because he's got no idea how to console someone in this sort of situation and no idea how to help. And this will remind him in a sort of flashback sequence of another situation with his best friend Opal that was sort of reminiscent of this. But that's beside the point for now. The only thing he can think to do in this moment is to sort of scramble around and save as many raindrop spirits as possible. The raindrop spirits being these little water droplet guys that also live in this forest. So he's scrambling around, digging through the ash, uncovering as many as possible, and in doing so Alvar notices that each time he pulls a raindrop spirit from underneath all of this debris, they all keep running away in a particular direction, and he realizes they're trying to lead him towards something. So as he and his friends follow them, more and more raindrop spirits will gather in front of them, forming this big glowing parade through the burning landscape, and eventually they'll reach a small shrine under a hill, in which is a mysterious floating seed. And after planting the seed, a huge forest spirit will spring up from the ground, forming into this giant rocky golem type guy, and the forest will begin to be rejuvenated. But this picture is obviously before that all happens, so to make this horrible burnt scenery, I was having to use a lot of greys and a lot of blacks, with not much colour to speak of. And that was quite hard because I was having to use a lot of layers just to make sure the piece didn't seem flat, but I did want to add some colour to the piece, just a little zest. So I surrounded the hill of this shrine with these tiny little blue flowers which, through some weird foresty magic, are the only survivors of this massive fire. Maybe their petals are made up of the foam that comes out of fire extinguishers or something, I don't know. I actually thought this piece turned out surprisingly well. As I said, it started off quite dull and flat, so I'm happy I did manage to get this sort of sense of magic in there, and I think adding in a lot of fog and smoke really helped with the contrast of the whole thing. Perhaps I could have spent more time on the background, but it's absolutely an improvement on my previous version of this scene, so I'm happy enough with how it came out. But there we are, let me know what you think of it in the comments, and that's the pieces for this episode.
So there we are everyone, thank you for tuning into this silly little wacky zany little video of mine. As always, let me know what you think of my artwork in the comments below, and if you're feeling inspired in any capacity and you want to send in some fan art or just some of your own artwork, then please do send it to the Discord down in the link in the description below, and I'm always very, very appreciative. It warms the cockles of my heart. That's right, the cockles of my heart. Oh yeah, I'll say again, BogBoymerch.com if you want to get yourself any merchandise. I really am appreciative to anybody who's got that. You'll be doing a great service and you'll be helping it insurmountably to support this channel. Most importantly, thank you for watching this video today. I've been Jude, this has been the Big Mountain animated film series, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!